Well, friends, you can have a seat. Thank you so much for being here. If you're brand new, my name is McCulloch. I get the honor and the privilege to stand here about 43 Sundays a year and brag about Jesus as the lead pastor here at On Mission Church. Thank you, Sammy. And it's just an honor that you're here. I know it's Labor Day weekend. We always joke how we know that you love vacations. So you're here, and I'm surprised, but I'm pumped up that you're here today. I know our church likes to get out and to move around. Well, friends, we are called On Mission Church. And I don't know about you, but I love the name of our church. I just want to give you a little insight what's going on with the name Mission in our church. On September 28th, there are 5 representatives of this church going to Panama. We're going down to visit a church in Panama to see if we want to partner with them and to do annual trips down there to get you out of your little bubble to go down there and to serve and roll up the sleeves and sweat together and to worship with another congregation. So more news will be coming in the future. At the end of this message today, if you're wondering how you can contribute, how you can help, because we want to bring down some gifts to this church and bless them, we'll have some more information at the end of the service today. Well, on the local front, I have good news to share with you. And I had goosebumps about this all last week. And just to let you know, a little fruit. I know we labor in ministry often, and every so often God lets us see some dangles. We call them apples and oranges. We call those fruit. It's good things that happen in ministry. This last week, Andrew Critchko, his parents said, Mark, could you just come over? And many of you know Andrew, if he holds still long enough where you can talk to him. He's 9 years old, and he's always up in corners of rooms, on walls, and parkouring everywhere. And so I went to their house, and Andrew he's done a different level theologically. He is so sharp. And all these questions about the gospel and had all these things, theological questions. And finally got to the point, I said, buddy, you can do this like right now. We're talking about how I was telling him that there's a spiritual side of God in the Trinity. It's a spirit so set apart from any other spirit. We call it a Holy Spirit. And when you give your life to Jesus, this Holy Spirit indwells in you. And you get the power of God residing in you, and his eyes are just opening so wide, and he's like, let's do this. So I prayed with him, and his parents were there, and he's praying after me, and we get done with the prayer, and he says, Mark, I feel the power of God in me. I'm like, yes, Andrew, that's what it's all about. So church, let's celebrate that this morning. 9 years old, and he was a powerhouse before the Holy Spirit. So when they get back from vacation, watch out for Andrew Critchko. He might be on the roof of the church. We'll have to get safety nets or something. But make sure to give him a hug, a high five, and when you see Andrew. So that is what's going on the local front. Well, friends, last week, if you weren't here, we had a panel discussion talking about the Bible. And let's here just walk through with, this year I got some sharp minds to join me on stage because I like to surround myself with people who are sharp because I need help. And we walked through that. If you weren't here, you missed out. You can go back online. You can view that service as well. But I did say a phrase I want to clarify. Hope this didn't cause any confusion with you. I said, with the evidence that we've gathered, it shows that the Bible is most likely true. Well, hear me clear this morning. I believe the Bible is true. And I hope you know me well enough as your pastor to know that I really believe the Bible is true. And I said that phrase in light of a skeptic that might be with us here in the morning, just to let them know the odds are against them when we look at the evidence. But also there's an aspect of faith, right? We have the evidence, but still there's a step you have to take in your faith. So yes, I believe the Bible is more than true. It's divine, it's inerrant, it's infallible, it's supernatural, it's life-giving, it's life-changing. This is why we walk through this. And so if you go to a church and if a pastor doesn't believe the Bible is true, flee that place. That is some inspirational organization with a live band is what that is. Well, we have enough of those inspirational organizations with live bands. We don't need another one. So yes, we're a church of the Bible. I do believe the Bible is true. Hope you understood what I meant by that. Well, friends, as we think about the Bible, above every book, way up there, as you could look at it, is like a treasure. And I hope this week you got into your Bible. I hope you opened it. I hope you walked through some passages. I hope you met. We had small groups kicked off this last week. It's so great to get feedback about your small groups, and so many of you are involved in small groups. But this morning, we're talking about a focal thing when it comes to finances, when it comes to money. And so often things and possessions of the world, they grab our attention. And so we're going to walk through a few of those things. Well, this morning, the one thing as you head to your car is this. Make Jesus your treasure above all other treasures. Make Jesus your treasure above all other treasures. And maybe you're sitting here thinking, well, that's easy. You're going to church. You're a Jesus follower, of course. He's priority, right? But then really, if we could have like a pie chart graph of where your heart goes, if we could have it printed off or to do some sort of scan that could show a pie chart of where your thoughts go, where your attentions go through the week, would it show Jesus as the majority on that pie chart? I know for me often, even with family, I love my girls, I love my wife, and I love life, and I love carpentry, all these things I just love, and sometimes I have to check myself. Wait, have I even talked to Jesus in the last few hours? Has he even been there? Well, this morning I want to challenge you really to make sure that your priorities are set straight, that we have Jesus as a focal point. Well, friends, we're in a brand new series, and we started this series like a year ago. We've chopped it up into chunks. And so this is from the Sermon on the Mount. I'd like to come back to this because it is the greatest sermon ever preached. It's so great because I get to steal from Jesus the greatest sermon ever. So if you disagree with me, it's great. You got a problem with the man upstairs. It's not me. So I'm like immune. I can just step away. These are his words. But the idea in this is that today in our world, everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to have the talk, the thing on TikTok and Instagram. Everybody, all these TED Talks, everybody's trying to have a word for you. They have the solution. Everybody's like climbing on each other, trying to get your attention, that they have the talk of all talks. Well, this, friends, this is the elevated talk of all talks. These are the words of Jesus, the words from his very mouth. And they were relevant then, and they're relevant today as well for us. Well, friends, we have to realize every time we open this book, we turn to a new book, you have to make sure, you have to realize that it's hot, it's hard to touch because it's a double-edged active sword. So you need to turn on the AC. The A stands for? The C stands for? Good. Author and context. So the author, Matthew, also called Levi. And the book of Matthew is fun because the first chapter, it says genealogy. So some people even call it, it's like, oh, that's Levi's genes. Okay, 5 of you got that theological joke. But it's this idea, well, Matthew is this finance guy, is a tax collector, radically changed by Jesus. It's a long, long book because if you know people who are like detailed and structured and finance people, oftentimes they can go a little bit long in explaining things. So Matthew fits into this category, capturing all these details as he has this scenario where Jesus is on this hillside. They call it the Mount, this hillside in the Sea of Galilee. His followers are there, maybe some skeptics as well. And what he's doing is he talks to them, is he's trying to raise the bar from what they understood before. You'd hear him a lot in the Sermon on the Mount say, well, you have heard it was said. Well, now let me clarify a few things. Then he goes back. Well, you have heard it was said. Let me clarify a few things. Well, you've heard that, a man should not commit adultery. Then he says, well, if a man looks at a woman with lust in his eyes, he's committed adultery with her in his heart. And then you could hear crickets at that point. Wait, what? So Jesus is raising the bar. Whole different standard as he walks through this. So in this passage today, there are four parts I want you to think of. It's really, I sum them up into questions. These are 4 questions we look at as we walk through this. And this message he has today is the first one, really the question is, where is your treasure? Where's that thing that you value the most in life? Where is your treasure? Where is your heart? Because they're connected. If you find your treasure, you're going to find the central part of your being. Your heart will be there. Okay? So where is your heart? Coinciding with treasure. The third one is, how is your vision? Do you have double vision? Are you nearsighted, not eternally focused? We'll cover that as well. And the last section is, who do you serve? And Kathy, you read this, but at the very end it says, you can't serve 2 masters. And I feel like this morning, maybe our friends online, maybe some of you feel like you are a slave to the mighty dollar. When you wake up in the morning, you just can't wait to just get more and more. And you just have to ask the question, well, how much is enough? This is covered all in this passage. I want to say this morning, just to clarify with all of you. As we sit in Mableton, Georgia, in the United States of America, in North America, friends, this morning, you are rich. The automobile you drove here in today is nice. The home that you go to after this, or the apartment, is nice. So whatever you go back to, statistically, you are probably in the 4% of the globe for niceness and nice things. So 96% of the globe goes back to a car that's not so nice, or no car, or a place that's not so nice. And some of you are probably in the top 1% of the globe. So here we are in Western developed country, the United States of America. If you're sitting here and thinking, well, no, we're not there yet. Because you look at your neighbors, you look on social media, you compare, you go back and forth. Well, friends, you are rich, even though you don't feel. A lot of you traveled, so you've been able to see in perspective from what's going on. Well, friends, it says this in chapter 6, the book of Matthew. It says this, and we're going through verses 19 through 24 today. In 19, Jesus says this: imagine the wisp of a breeze coming up the hillside, the Sea of Galilee. Everyone gathered around, listening, focus, no microphones, so they really dial in. And Jesus says this. He says, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. As you read this, I hope you're thinking for yourself this morning, what is your treasure? What is that one thing that you're just like, I cannot imagine life without this. This is my go-to. This is my treasure. This is my thing. Because you have to identify that first. What is your treasure? The Greek here is interesting. What it really means in this context is do not treasure for yourself treasures on earth. So don't treasure those treasures. So it's not really a passage that's like anti-stuff and things, but hoarders will address you in a minute. It's not really just saying, okay, we're getting this against this. It's more like, okay, don't treasure your treasures. So your heart, how you view the things that you own, should not be viewed as treasures, like the box with the gold and the shiny stuff in it. When you find a sunken ship, that discovery of treasure that blows our minds, it should not be viewed that way. Well, friends, back in 1992, there was a survey. This is many years ago, but there's a survey that really shed some light onto the hearts of people. So, talking about the American dream, because here we sit in the United States of America. They asked a lot of people how much money they'd have to make to have the American dream. So how much is it to live the American dream? Those who earn $25,000 or less a year thought they would need around $54,000 a year to have the American dream. Now, those in the $100,000 annual income bracket said they could buy the dream for an average of $192,000 a year. Now, as we look at these figures, it shows the heart of man really says, if I just had about double what I have now, I can live the dream. And I guarantee you, those people, whatever they're looking for that next bracket, are saying, well, I just need to double this. And then you get there when it's doubled, and what do you want? You want more. It's this never-ending condition. And maybe for some of you this morning, you feel like you're chasing and chasing and chasing because the heart of man is corrupt, and we are never truly satisfied with things on earth. We want more. It talks about moths. Moths, the interesting idea behind a moth. Back then, clothing was a big deal. So what you would wear would show your significance, show your stature in the community, show your status, I should say, in the community, right, Mel? We joke about that word all the time. But then rust, the things that can be corroded, can fall apart. I grew up on the Oregon coast, right by the beach, and maybe some of you have lived by a beach, and you know there's something about the salt that just comes in, there's just corrosion. I remember as a little boy driving, and I remember this one time with mom in the car running errands, and we just heard this clunk. The muffler just fell off. It was dragging. That was common in Newport, Oregon. Maybe for some of you, you've seen that before. So we should not focus on things that are temporary and that can fall off the car and drag. And then thieves. He talks about thieves. So we should not have our treasure be based on something that can be stolen, something that's not eternal, something that's material that can be stolen from us. But churches around, or friends, the churches around the globe today, specifically here in the United States, there's this whole idea of a lot of prosperity in these inspiring organizations with live bands. This morning, a lot of them gather and they have this push that, health, wealth, and wisdom comes from being a follower of Jesus. And I don't know what Bible they're reading, because when I read our Bible, the ones who follow Christ, they did not have a very good life. Things were brutal for them. Then you study how they died, horrible deaths, being chased and martyred because of their faith. So I don't know what book these people are reading, but there is a call for, there's some sort of image of suffering as we follow Jesus. That's normal. There's no such thing as that money will grow on trees. So now, we know what not to do He kind of has these contrasts, and as he walks through this passage, he says what not to do. Now, here is what you are to do. In verse 20, he says, "But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal." So have your treasures in heaven. Well, what does this mean? Friends, I want to say this. You will never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul trailer. Now, yes, if you go and do archaeology in Egypt and you dig up the mummified pharaohs and you see all this stuff, well, the stuff is still there and never went with them to the afterlife. We have this idea of like, oh, you want to die with all these toys? Well, he who dies with the most toys still dies. You can't take these things. So what's he talking about when he talks about treasure in heaven? So now, I do want to give you an idea, too, when it comes to value, that gold in heaven has the value of asphalt, that we know that streets will be paved with gold. When it comes to our works that we do here on earth that don't save us, but they're an indication of our faith as we do good things, we see that there are some sort of rewards in heaven. Now, it's easy to focus on, okay, what are the rewards? You know, is there a mansion? Like, how many bathrooms are in it? Like, do we have to go to the bathroom? What kind of food is there going to be? Is there going to be a pool? We have all these, human thoughts that we get about the heaven and the afterlife, things that can boggle our minds. Well, friends, I want to have you focus on this. The greatest aspect of Christianity is not just salvation. It is not just purpose. It isn't just value. It isn't just meaning. It isn't just hope. The best aspect about Christianity is that you gain Christ. So you get Jesus Christ. And I hope that is a treasure above every other treasure in your life. Because sometimes you think, okay, what are the bennies? What do we get for following Jesus? What do I get? What's the package? What do we get? And I even asking our girls this morning in the bed as we walk through this passage, it's fun to hear little voices and minds. I said, girls, what's the best part about Christianity? Oh, this, and we get this, these cute little, I don't remember what they said, it was just too cute and fluffy. But get all these cute little things. And finally I say, well, girls, you get Christ. And Reese, our 7-year-old, her little eyebrow goes, boing, like, oh, yeah, we get Jesus. Like how often we forget just to be satisfied with him and to spend time with him and to love him and thank him for who he is. So we get Christ. Well, friends, if you ever have wondered where you are in life, if you ever wonder what your pulse is, if you ever wonder what is the driving force of your existence, it is that thing that consumes you, that thing that consumes your mind and your heart. That is where you usually find your treasure. And that is where your treasure is. And now, talking about the central part of the being, the heart. So we move on and we say, well, where is your heart? Verse 21 says this, for where your treasure is. So if you find your treasure, then you locate your drive. There, your heart will be also. So if you ever want to know where the central focus of your body is, it's where that treasure box is for you. That pie chart of your thoughts and your feelings, that really is where your heart is. So it's a physical issue, it's a mental issue as well when it comes to focusing on treasures. And today, in 2022, as we move on from the heart, we start talking about here the eye. Everyone is trying to gain your eye. As you drive, I'm sure you see all these billboards trying to gauge and trying to get you to look here, social media, these pop-up ads all the time. Everyone is trying to get you to look. And advertising is defined this way by Will Rogers. Advertising is the art of convincing people to spend money they don't have for something they don't need. That is the main drive behind advertising. If we can just convince you that you need this thing, and even if you don't have the money, you will find a way to get this thing. And people work so hard 24/7 to hook you and to start with the eye. So now Jesus does this bridge from the heart into the eye. So the question here is, how is your vision? How is your vision? Verse 22, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. So it starts with the eye. The eye is this window to the soul. And if your eye is healthy, you can see really well. So really what he's trying to say here is don't have spiritual nearsightedness or double vision. Because if you're just focused on your stuff and all you see is stuff here, you have no eternal perspective. That's all you're going to drown in is this stuff. Or maybe you have double vision. You're like, okay, Jesus over here, it's great, but there's all this stuff over here. I just want a little bit more. It's over here. Don't be satisfied. Your eyes are like split like this, going this way. That's what he's trying to say here is don't have your eyes be like that. Have healthy eyes. Have eternal eyes in how you view things here. He says this in verse 23, but if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? So when we gather and we store up treasures here on earth, it blurs our vision. I'm sure many of you have seen those shows on hoarders. Maybe you know someone in your life that just loves their stuff. You dread visiting them because there's probably a smell. You don't know what's going to crawl out from underneath the stuff. These people don't know where to begin when it comes to their stuff. When I go, I've used to, back in Oregon as a youth pastor, visiting homes, there's a few homes, I just wanted to light a match. Like, just don't look, I can save you so much stress. Just let me light the match. But there's just something about us. As you watch these shows about hoarders, there's something about just you never know when you're going to need this again. You put it here, something else. It's more of a condition, yes, of the heart, but also the eye. And something is unhealthy when we just want and we want and we want. A few years ago, I heard a man speaking about when he was a little boy in Portland, Oregon. He was in his house, and he saw his family gathered around the dining room table, but they weren't seated. So he was off doing something. He remembers some commotion going on in the dining room. And there's one light over this table. As he walked over to this table, he could sense that something was tense. His parents were there, his grandparents were there, and a few other family members. As he walked to the table, he was about hip height. He remembers trying to kind of go in between his parents' hip to see what they're looking at. And everyone was just awkward around the table. His grandparents had on that table, they had a lottery ticket. They had just won $4.2 million. Now, it was tense because within a few minutes of seeing that they won $4.2 million, they were already having disagreement. You could feel the tension in the room. They're trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to spend? Are we going to invest? What are we going to give? And there was so much tension with his grandparents. So he's watching his parents try to mediate between them, trying to bring in understanding and healing, trying to give them some counsel how you can spend this, invest this. And then it started to the volume went up. They started arguing. He remembers stepping away. Friends, within 2 months, his grandparents were divorced. He saw their lives just fall apart because they could not handle having that much money. There's something in us as creatures. We just cannot handle it when it consumes us. Yes, there are many of you in this room, you're good stewards of your finances. You have worked really hard, and it's not something you view as a treasure, and that is biblical. But when it gets to a point where you view your finances and your stuff and your treasures, when you hold on to it with a tight, clenched fist, you say, this is everything to me, more, I want more, then it consumes you, then that creeps in and it becomes sin. And it's far from Christ, because Christ takes a backseat at that point behind that. Well, friends, it can consume us. And the last question here is, who do you serve? And Jesus really asks a great question that pertains today as well. A great question for us. He says this in verse 24. No one can serve two masters. You can't serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. It cannot be at the same level. One is going to lose, one is going to win in this situation. The Greek word here for money is mammon. And so the idea behind this is that it means riches, material wealth. So stuff you could even add in there, your treasures. Those things for us that we often bow down to. Well, you have to choose just one. Because when you wake up tomorrow morning, you have a fresh Monday, it's Labor Day, hopefully many of you are not working, you can hopefully relax. If you're going to travel, you can travel. But friends, as you wake up in the morning, I want you to ask yourself, who do I serve today? Because it's easy to get open the calendar and to be a slave to your schedule and to be a slave to all these things and to be a slave to your bank accounts and to be freaked out living in anxiety. And friends, if you suffer from anxiety, come back next week because Jesus addresses anxiety, which is a direct correlation, I think, follows out of this as well when it comes to finances. So now he just says, hey, you have to choose one. So who do you choose? Well, friends, we are all one heartbeat closer to eternity. We don't know if we have tomorrow because tomorrow is not guaranteed. So we get this challenge from Jesus to focus on him and to see him as the treasure above all treasures. So friends, the question for you this morning is, what is your treasure? What is your thing? Because in this comparison world, and I know I know many of you have great homes and you have great wealth, but I still know for you it's difficult because there's still pressure. I've mentioned this before, the church we served at in Chicago, a very wealthy church, and depression was the number one issue in that church because people would be at their very nice home and they would look out through the curtain and see the neighbor had a new boat. And then they're like, maybe I'm a lake guy as well. Maybe I should get a boat. And then it's just constant back and forth from there. Constant, never satisfied. More, more, more. We always want more, and there's never enough. More, more, more. So what is it for you? Is it nice clothes? Is it a better house? Is it just a little bit more money? Is it a boat? Is it popularity? Is it your stuff? Is it your tools? Is it your stuff in your makeup cabinet, your things that you're just like, this is my stuff? Whatever it is for you, I want you to visualize this morning having that take a step down the rung of the ladder and putting Jesus on top as the very treasure above all other treasures. He's just sitting there waiting for your attention. And I hope that he satisfies your soul, that he's enough, that when you talk to him, when you read and you discover more about him, you interact with him through his word, that you are satisfied by the Son of God that consumes your soul. That is my prayer for you, friends. So friends, make Jesus your treasure above all other treasures. Above all other treasures. Well, friends, I want to give you a chance this morning as we get ready to go down to Panama in a few weeks to encourage a church and to help them and assist where we're needed and just to be with them. We want to bring a big gift pack for them, for the kids in the community. And if this morning you're thinking, man, I just want to give in a way that's either financially, because we will, if you want to give to the missions fund, we'll take some of that money as well that you give, or you just make it clear how. We will use that to help with the trip. But if you use this QR code, if you hold your phone up, it shows you an Amazon wish list that Barbie Ederle put together that shows just the needs for things we want to give these kids when we go down there. So if you want to just help give, here's a way how you can do that. We'll also have a barrel next week that you can show up. If you want to give with some of those things, there are in other ways, you can do that as well. Because friends, you are rich. And for those of you who've been able to travel, you understand that. The rest of the world does not live how we live. Well, friends, this week I want to make sure I'll pray for you, and our staff will pray for you as well, to make Jesus your treasure above all other treasures. Well, friends, this morning, if you've never placed your faith in Jesus, if you have him down here and you have your stuff up here, if you want to get that righted and become right before him, I'll invite you this morning to place your faith in Jesus. If you just want to do a recommitment of your priorities, I'll be in the back of the room, and I would love to pray with you for whatever you're going through. That way you can get your priorities figured out to make sure Jesus is on top and he's not anywhere else on your list. Well, friends, let me pray for you this morning. Jesus, King Jesus, I come before you so humbled. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for taking this guy who was lost in my own sin, who tried to be my own God, and yet you got me. So God, thank you for your grace that I don't deserve. Thank you for your love that I don't deserve. And Jesus, thank you for being the ultimate treasure. And if there's anyone in this room today or anyone tuning online that has never made you treasure number one, Jesus, have this be the morning that they say, you know what, my priorities are off. I am playing the game. I am chasing the almighty dollar every day, and it is never, never enough, because God, we always want more. So Jesus, satisfy our souls. Have us rest in you, because Jesus, you are more than enough. Your grace is sufficient. Nothing else will satisfy us. And if there's anyone in the room that is dealing with anxiety, that is freaked out because a new week is coming, Jesus, I know your words of life are so helpful. Have them read ahead in this chapter. And guide us next week as we talk about anxiety and worry, as your words are so helpful for us. And Jesus, I pray this in your name. Amen. Well, friends, once a month, we love to partake in the Lord's Supper, a time of communion. And Jesus in the upper room, the night before he was crucified, he met with his disciples, and he knew they were sheep. And if you follow the Good Shepherd today, you are a sheep. This means we wander. This means we forget. And so he wants us to partake in this, to remember him for what he's done for us, and to remember him as top treasure in our life. And he says this is recorded later on. Matthew records this in the upper room. It says this, it says, now as they were eating, Jesus took bread. Jesus took bread. And friends, I'll just say this now. We actually have bread for you here today, real bread. So we've graduated from our COVID cups, and yes, we'll have a few this morning if you're kind of sensitive in that way, but we actually have bread and juice here today. He took the bread. After blessing it, he broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, take, eat. This is my body. And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink of it, all of you. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. It's a reminder what he's done for us, because we are so quick to forget. And yes, I know you'll head out of here, you go to your car, you have lunch plans and all these great things going. But we're just going to take a pause right now just to focus on Jesus and his work of redemption that he's done for us. And friends, I'll encourage you to come up and to take of the elements, and on your own time, and go back with your family and just pray with your family. And here we do reserve communion for those who are followers of Jesus. We think it's a thing you do as a sign that you're a follower of him. But if you need a moment, just take the elements and go back in your seat and just worship and have a quiet time with your family, or just pray by yourself. And I'll be in the back if you'd like some prayer. I would love to pray for you for anything that you're going through in life. So friends, this time right now is for you.